The recording was gone. 3 years of listening to my 7-year-old daughter's last "I love you, Daddy" every night before bed, and Brooke had deleted it like she was clearing spam from her inbox. "It was for your own good, Michael," she said, not even looking up from her phone where she was posting another fitness selfie. "You can't keep living in the past. It's not healthy." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I stared at her perfectly sculpted back, every muscle defined from hours at the gym, and felt something cold settle in my chest. Something that had nothing to do with grief and everything to do with rage. My name is Michael Turner. I'm 38 years old, a firefighter in Cedar Heights, and until 3 minutes ago, I thought I knew what betrayal felt like. Turns out I'd been living in the shallow end of that particular pool. The firehouse on Maple Street had been my second home for 15 years. Red brick, white doors, the smell of diesel and coffee permanently embedded in the walls. Captain Briggs always said the place had character, which was his polite way of saying it was falling apart, but we couldn't afford to fix it. "Turner, you look like hell," Kelly Martinez called out as I walked into the common room. She was sprawled across the worn leather couch, reading a magazine about motorcycles she'd never buy. Kelly had been my partner for 8 years, and she had this annoying habit of being right about everything. "Thanks for the pep talk," I muttered, pouring myself coffee that could strip paint. Really what I needed to hear. "I'm serious. When's the last time you slept? And I mean actually slept, not that thing you do where you stare at the ceiling all night." I took a sip of the coffee and immediately regretted it. "I sleep fine." "Uh-huh. And I'm the Queen of England." Kelly tossed her magazine onto the scarred wooden table. "This about Brooke again?" Everything was about Brooke these days. Brooke Adams, fitness influencer extraordinaire, with her 20,000 Instagram followers and her protein shake sponsorships. We'd been dating for 6 months, ever since she'd approached me at Murphy's bar with that smile that could sell ice to penguins. "She deleted Lily's voice message," I said quietly. Kelly's expression shifted from casual concern to something harder. "She what?" "You heard me. Went through my phone while I was in the shower and deleted it. Said it wasn't healthy for me to keep listening to it." "Jesus, Mike." Kelly sat up straighter. Please tell me you have a backup." I did, but that wasn't the point. The point was that Brooke had taken it upon herself to decide what was best for my healing process. The point was that she'd violated something sacred without asking, then acted like she'd done me a favor. "The point is, she had no right," I said. Kelly nodded slowly. "No, she didn't. That's really messed up, Mike." The alarm bell chose that moment to ring, its harsh clang echoing through the station. House fire on Elm Street. Kelly and I exchanged glances, then moved with the practiced efficiency of people who'd done this dance 1,000 times. As we suited up, I found myself thinking about fire, how it started small, sometimes just a spark you barely noticed, how it could smolder for hours before anyone realized what was happening, how by the time you saw the flames, it was usually too late to stop them. The house on Elm Street was a total loss. Old Victorian, dry as kindling, probably hadn't been updated since the Eisenhower administration. The family got out safely, but they lost everything else. Photo albums, heirlooms, memories turned to ash and smoke. I stood in their front yard afterward, still in my gear, watching the husband comfort his crying wife. He kept whispering the same thing over and over. "We're alive. That's what matters. We're alive." But I could see it in his eyes. The same look I'd had for 3 years. The look of someone who'd lost pieces of themselves they'd never get back. "You okay?" Kelly appeared beside me, pulling off her helmet. "Yeah, just thinking." "About Brooke?" "About fire," I said. "How it spreads." Brooke's gym was called Elevate Fitness, which I'd always thought was pretentious but had kept to myself. It occupied a converted warehouse in the trendy part of downtown, all exposed brick and industrial lighting. The kind of place where a bottle of water cost $5 and everyone looked like they'd stepped out of a fitness magazine. I wasn't supposed to be there. Brooke had made it clear after our fight that she needed space to process. But I'd forgotten my water bottle in her car, and I needed it for my shift tomorrow. The front desk girl, a blonde named Ashley who couldn't have been more than 20, gave me a nervous smile when I walked in. "Hi, Mr. Turner. Brooke's in the back office with Jason and Tanya. Should I?" "I'll just grab my bottle from her car," I said. "Won't be a minute." But as I walked toward the parking lot, I heard voices coming from the office. The door was cracked open, and I recognized Brooke's laugh. Not her public laugh, the one she used for her Instagram stories, but her real one. The one that usually meant she was talking about someone behind their back. I should have kept walking, should have grabbed my bottle and left. Instead, I found myself stopping just outside the door, hidden by a potted plant that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. "I'm telling you, it's getting ridiculous," Brooke was saying. He listens to that recording every single night, his late daughter saying, "I love you, Daddy." It's been 3 years. 3 years, and he's still completely obsessed with this kid. "That's so unhealthy," said another voice. Tanya Walsh, Brooke's best friend and fellow influencer. "Like, I get that losing a child is hard, but at some point you have to move on, right?" "Exactly." This was a man's voice, deep, smooth, confident. Jason Miller, the gym manager. I'd met him a few times at Brooke's events. Mid-40s, silver hair, the kind of guy who probably practiced his handshake in the mirror. "You can't build a relationship with someone who's still married to a ghost?" "The worst part is the closeness," Brooke continued, and I felt my face burn with humiliation. "He barely touches me anymore. I think he feels guilty, like he's betraying his late wife or something. I'm 28 years old, I'm in the best shape of my life, and I'm dating a guy who treats me like I'm made of glass." "So why stay with him?" Tanya asked. There was a pause. When Brooke spoke again, her voice had a calculating edge I'd never heard before. "Because he's useful. Do you know how many followers I've gained since we started dating? The whole helping a broken man heal angle plays really well. Plus, he's a firefighter. The uniform shots get insane engagement." I gripped the door frame so hard I thought it might crack. "But the novelty's wearing off," Brooke continued. "And honestly, I'm getting tired of pretending to care about his emotional baggage. Maybe it's time to move on to someone who's actually available." "Someone like Jason?" Tanya's voice was sing-song, teasing. "Maybe," Brooke said, and I heard the smile in her voice. "He certainly doesn't have any late kids cluttering up his emotional space." Jason laughed. "I do have other qualities to recommend me." "Oh, I'm sure you do," Brooke purred. I'd heard enough, more than enough. I backed away from the door on shaking legs, my heart pounding so hard I was surprised they couldn't hear it through the wall. I made it to my truck before the rage hit me full force. Not the clean, simple anger I'd felt when she deleted Lily's message. This was something else entirely. Something that burned hotter and deeper, fed by humiliation and betrayal and 3 years of carefully buried grief. I sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes, hands gripping the steering wheel, trying to process what I'd just heard. Brooke hadn't just violated my privacy. She'd been using my late daughter as content for her social media brand. She'd been performing compassion while mocking my pain behind my back, and she was already planning her next move with Jason Miller. My phone buzzed. A text from Brooke. "Hey babe, sorry about earlier. Want to come over tonight? I'll make dinner." I stared at the message for a long time, then I typed back, "Can't tonight, working late." It wasn't a lie. I did have work to do, just not the kind she was expecting. The Cedar Heights Public Library closed at 9 p.m., but Mrs. Chen, the head librarian, had always been fond of me. Something about firefighters brought out the maternal instinct in women of a certain age. She let me stay until almost 10, hunched over one of their ancient computers, doing research. Jason Miller had quite the digital footprint. LinkedIn profile boasting about his innovative approach to fitness management. Facebook full of gym selfies and inspirational quotes about success. Instagram account with carefully curated shots of his abs and his BMW. But it was his Yelp reviews that interested me most, specifically the ones from former employees of gyms he'd managed. A pattern emerged pretty quickly. Jason had a habit of getting involved with female staff members, then making their lives miserable when the relationships ended. 3 different women mentioned hostile work environment and inappropriate behavior. One had even filed a complaint with the state labor board. I screenshotted everything. Next, I dove into Brooke's social media history. It didn't take long to find what I was looking for. She'd been tagging Jason in posts for months, long before our fight. Workout videos where he happened to be in the background. Stories from gym events where she made sure to get him in the frame. The timeline was damning. Our relationship had been a performance piece from the beginning, and I'd been too grief-stricken to notice the cameras rolling. By the time I left the library, I had a plan. Not revenge, exactly. More like controlled demolition. Sometimes the only way to stop a fire from spreading was to remove its fuel source. I drove home to my empty house on Sycamore Street. 3 bedrooms, 2 baths, a mortgage I could barely afford on a firefighter's salary. Sarah and I had bought it when Lily was 2, planning to fill it with siblings and birthday parties and Christmas mornings. Now it was just me and the echoes. I went straight to my laptop and opened my cloud storage. Found the backup of Lily's voice message, the one Brooke thought she'd destroyed. 7 seconds of my daughter's voice recorded 3 days before the accident that took her and Sarah away from me. I love you, Daddy. See you when you get home from work. I played it twice, then got to work. The email took me 2 hours to write. I drafted it, deleted it, started over. The tone had to be perfect, concerned citizen, not vengeful ex-boyfriend. 2, email protected, email protected, email protected. Subject, concerns regarding staff conduct at Elevate Fitness. Dear management, I am writing to bring to your attention some concerning behavior I've witnessed at your Cedar Heights location. As a longtime member of the fitness community and a first responder who values professionalism, I felt obligated to share this information. I have documented evidence of inappropriate conduct between gym manager Jason Miller and fitness instructor Brooke Adams, including derogatory comments about gym members and unprofessional behavior during business hours. Attached, you will find screenshots of social media posts and recorded conversations that I believe violate your company's code of conduct and potentially create liability issues. I hope this information helps you maintain the high standards your brand is known for. Sincerely, a concerned member. I attached everything. The screenshots of Jason's history with female employees, audio clips of Brooke and Tanya making fun of gym members. I'd recorded those during a previous visit when they thought I was in the bathroom. Photos of Jason and Brooke in compromising positions during what should have been work hours. I sent copies to Elevate's corporate office, their main sponsors, and the Better Business Bureau. Then I sat back and waited. I didn't have to wait long. My phone rang at 6 a.m., Brooke's name on the caller ID. Michael, what the hell did you do? Her voice was shaking with rage. I'm sorry, what are you talking about? Don't play dumb with me. Someone sent corporate a bunch of lies about me and Jason. They're launching an investigation. My sponsors are asking questions. This has your fingerprints all over it. I took a sip of my coffee, enjoying the moment. That's a serious accusation, Brooke. Do you have any proof? I know it was you. You know, it's funny, I said conversationally. Yesterday you were telling me I needed to let go of the past and move on with my life. Seems like good advice. Maybe you should take it. There was a long silence. When she spoke again, her voice was different, colder. You have no idea what you've started. Actually, I think I do. See you around, Brooke. I hung up and got ready for work, humming for the first time in months. The retaliation came faster than I'd expected. I was barely through the firehouse door when Captain Briggs called me into his office. Sit down, Turner. Briggs was 62 years old, built like a fire hydrant, and had been fighting fires since before I was born. He'd seen everything twice and wasn't impressed by much. The fact that he looked uncomfortable made my stomach clench. I got a call this morning, he said without preamble. From Jason Miller over at Elevate Fitness, says you've been harassing his staff, making threats. That's not true. He's also claiming you've been stalking your ex-girlfriend, recording private conversations without consent. Briggs leaned back in his chair. Now, I know you've been going through a rough patch, son. We all understand that. But this kind of behavior? Captain, with all due respect, did he provide any evidence of these claims? Briggs frowned. Well, no, but because I can provide evidence that Jason Miller has a history of inappropriate relationships with female employees. I can also provide evidence that he and Brooke Adams have been conducting a personal relationship on company time in violation of their employment agreements. I pulled out my phone and played one of the recordings. Brooke's voice crystal clear. The worst part is the closeness. He barely touches me anymore. Briggs's face went through several interesting color changes. Where did you get this? They were having a private conversation in a public space. No expectation of privacy. I'd done my research at the library. Everything I did was completely legal. Legal, maybe, but smart? Briggs shook his head. This kind of drama doesn't reflect well on the department, Mike. We're supposed to be the good guys. I am the good guy. I'm just not the victim anymore. Before Briggs could respond, the alarm bell rang. Structure fire on Industrial Boulevard. We looked at each other, the conversation tabled by necessity. But as we suited up, I could feel the other guys watching me differently. Word traveled fast in a firehouse, and I could practically hear the whispered conversations. Turner's lost it. Turner's gone off the deep end. Maybe Turner can't be trusted anymore. The fire was at a textile warehouse, old brick building with a maze of corridors and storage rooms, the kind of place that could turn into a trap if you weren't careful. Kelly and I went in together, following protocol, checking for hot spots and structural damage. You okay? She asked through the radio, her voice muffled by the breathing apparatus. I'm fine. Because Briggs is worried about you. We all are. I stopped walking and turned to face her. Through the face mask, her eyes were serious. I didn't do anything wrong, Kelly. Maybe not legally, but Mike, this isn't you. This scheming, calculating thing, it's not who you are. Maybe it's who I need to be. She was quiet for a moment. Then, your daughter wouldn't recognize you right now. It was a low blow, and we both knew it. But it was also true, and that made it hurt worse. My daughter is late, I said quietly. And the woman I trusted to help me heal from that has been using her memory as a marketing tool. So forgive me if I'm not feeling particularly noble right now. Kelly didn't respond, but I could see the judgment in her eyes. Another friendship damaged by the fire I'd started. We finished the job in silence. The confrontation I'd been expecting came 3 days later. I was leaving Murphy's bar after a couple of beers with some guys from Station 7 when I saw them waiting by my truck. Jason Miller and 2 other guys I recognized from the gym. Big guys, the kind who spent more time looking at themselves in mirrors than actually working out. Michael Turner, Jason called out as I approached. His voice was friendly, but his smile was all teeth. We need to talk. I don't think we do. Oh, but I think we do. He stepped closer, and I caught a whiff of expensive cologne mixed with protein powder. See? You cost me my job today. Corporate decided I was a liability. 20 years in fitness management, and some sad sack with a late kid ruins it all with a few phone calls. The casual cruelty of it, late kid, hit me like a physical blow. But I'd been in enough dangerous situations to know that showing weakness now would be a mistake. That's unfortunate, I said. But maybe you should have thought about that before you started sleeping with your employees. Jason's smile widened. You know what I think? I think you're a pathetic loser who can't handle the fact that a real man took your woman. I think you're so broken by your little family tragedy that you can't function like a normal human being. One of his friends laughed. Dude's probably still crying into his pillow every night. Actually, Jason continued, Brooke told me all about your performance issues. How you can't even touch her without thinking about your late wife. That's got to be embarrassing for a guy your age. The rage that had been simmering for days suddenly flared white hot. But instead of losing control, I felt myself getting calmer, more focused. It was the same feeling I got walking into a burning building, that moment when training took over and fear became fuel. You know what's funny, Jason? I said conversationally. You think this is about Brooke, but it's not. It's about respect, and you just made a very big mistake. I reached into my truck and pulled out my equipment bag. Jason and his friends tensed, probably expecting a weapon. Instead, I pulled out my firefighter's axe and a length of rope. See, the thing about being a firefighter, I continued, testing the weight of the axe in my hands, is that you learn how to handle dangerous situations. You learn how to stay calm when other people panic, and you learn how to use the tools at your disposal. Are you threatening us? One of Jason's friends asked, but his voice had lost some of its bravado. Not threatening, educating. I smiled. For instance, did you know that this axe can cut through a car door in about 30 seconds? Or that this rope has a breaking strength of 3,000 pounds? Jason took a step back. You're insane. No, I'm trained. There's a difference. I moved closer, and they moved back. Now, here's what's going to happen. You're going to get in your car, drive away, and never bother me again. Because if you don't, I'm going to make your life very, very difficult. And unlike you, I actually know how to follow through on my threats. This isn't over, Jason said, but he was already backing toward his BMW. Yes, it is, I replied. You just don't know it yet. They left, tires squealing on the asphalt. I stood in the parking lot for a few minutes, letting the adrenaline work its way out of my system. Then I got in my truck and drove home, already planning my next move. The video went viral 3 days later. Not the confrontation in the parking lot. I wasn't stupid enough to escalate that into something that could get me arrested. This was something much more effective. Brooke had made a mistake. In her anger over losing her sponsorship deals, she'd posted a video on her Instagram story, ranting about jealous ex-boyfriends and pathetic men who can't handle strong women. She'd gotten specific about our relationship, painting herself as the victim of an obsessive, unstable man who couldn't let go of his tragic past. What she didn't know was that I'd been recording our conversations for weeks, ever since I'd started suspecting she was using me for content. All perfectly legal. Single-party consent state, and most of them were in public places anyway. So when she posted her victim narrative, I was ready with the receipts. I created an anonymous YouTube account and uploaded a 20-minute video titled The Truth About Brooke Adams. It was professionally edited. I'd learned some basic video skills during my volunteer work with the fire department's public outreach program. Clean audio, clear visuals, and devastating content. The video opened with Brooke's Instagram rant, then cut to audio of her actual words about me, her mocking my grief over Lily, her complaints about our private life, her admission that she was using my tragedy for social media content, her plans to move on to Jason Miller. But the real destroyer was the footage I'd secretly recorded at one of her fitness classes. Brooke, thinking she was off camera, making cruel comments about her clients, calling one woman too fat for yoga pants, laughing about another client's mastectomy scars, mocking an elderly man's struggle with the equipment. The contrast was devastating. Public Brooke, all compassion and body positivity, versus private Brooke, shallow and cruel. I ended the video with a simple message. This is who Brooke Adams really is when she thinks no one is watching. Decide for yourself if this is someone you want to support. Within 24 hours, it had 50,000 views. Within 48 hours, it was trending on Twitter. Fitness influencers started distancing themselves from her. Her remaining sponsors pulled their contracts. The comments section was a bloodbath of former clients sharing their own stories of Brooke's behind-the-scenes cruelty. Kelly found me at the firehouse the next morning, laptop in hand. "Mike, what the hell is this?" She turned the screen toward me, showing the YouTube video. "I have no idea what you're talking about." "Don't lie to me. This is your work. I can tell." I shrugged. "Looks like someone finally showed the world who Brooke Adams really is. Can't say I'm surprised." "This is destroying her life." "She destroyed her own life. I just documented it." Kelly stared at me for a long moment. "You're scaring me, Mike. This isn't justice. This is revenge." "Sometimes they're the same thing." She shook her head and walked away. I watched her go, feeling a stab of regret. Kelly had been a good friend, a good partner, but she didn't understand. She'd never lost everything, never had someone mock that loss for social media likes. She'd never learned that sometimes the only way to put out a fire was to burn everything around it. The final confrontation came 2 weeks later, at the place where it all started. Elevate Fitness had closed permanently. Corporate had decided the bad publicity wasn't worth the lease payments, but the building was still there, empty and dark, with a for rent sign in the window. I got the text at 11 p.m. "Meet me at the gym. We need to talk. Come alone. B." I should have ignored it. Should have stayed home, opened a beer, and enjoyed my victory. Instead, I found myself driving through the empty streets of downtown Cedar Heights, pulled by a curiosity I couldn't quite name. The front door was unlocked. Inside, the gym was a graveyard of abandoned equipment. Treadmills stood silent, their screens dark. Weight machines sat unused, gathering dust. The mirrors that had once reflected Brooke's perfect form now showed only shadows. I found her in the back office, sitting behind the desk that had once been Jason's. She looked different, smaller somehow. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail instead of the elaborate styles she usually favored. No makeup, no carefully chosen workout clothes. Just jeans and a sweater, like a normal person. "You came," she said. "You asked me to." "I wasn't sure you would, after everything." I leaned against the doorframe, keeping my distance. "What do you want, Brooke?" She was quiet for a long moment, staring at her hands. When she looked up, her eyes were red-rimmed. "I want to understand why you destroyed my life." "I didn't destroy anything. I just showed people who you really are." "That wasn't who I really am. That was me at my worst. Everyone has moments they're not proud of." "Most people don't build their careers on fake compassion while mocking the people they claim to care about." She flinched. "I never meant for you to hear those things. That makes it worse, not better." "I know." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I know I hurt you. I know I was cruel. But did I really deserve to lose everything?" I studied her face, looking for signs of the performance I'd grown so familiar with. But this seemed real. Raw. For the first time since I'd known her, Brooke Adams wasn't performing for an audience. "My daughter died in a car accident 3 years ago," I said quietly. She was 7 years old. She loved dinosaurs and strawberry ice cream and terrible jokes that made no sense. The last thing she ever said to me was, "I love you, Daddy. See you when you get home from work." Brooke's eyes filled with tears. "I recorded that message by accident. She was playing with my phone while I was getting ready for work, and she left it for me to find later. For 3 years, that 7-second recording was the most precious thing I owned. It was proof that she existed, that she loved me, that for 7 perfect years I was someone's daddy. Michael, you deleted it like it was spam. Then you went to your friends and laughed about my grief. You turned my late child into content for your social media brand. You performed compassion while planning to move on to your next victim." I stepped closer, and she shrank back in the chair. "So yes, Brooke, You deserve to lose everything, because you took everything from someone else first." She was crying openly now, mascara-free tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was selfish and cruel, and I hurt you in ways I didn't even understand. But please, can't we find a way to fix this? Can't we?" "No." The word hung in the air between us like smoke. "There's no fixing this. There's no going back. You made your choices, and now you get to live with the consequences." I turned to leave, then stopped. "Oh, and Brooke, I got Lily's voice back. Cloud backup. So in the end, you didn't even manage to take that away from me." I left her there, crying in the empty office of her ruined dreams. 6 months later, I was promoted to lieutenant. Captain Briggs said it was because of my leadership potential and ability to handle difficult situations. Kelly said it was because the department felt guilty about doubting me once the full truth about Brooke and Jason came out. I didn't care about the reason. The promotion came with a raise, better hours, and a fresh start with a new crew. Young firefighters who didn't know about my past, who saw me as just another officer doing his job. Brooke left town. I heard she moved back in with her parents in Ohio, got a job at a regular gym teaching basic fitness classes. No more social media presence, no more influencer lifestyle. Just a normal person living a normal life, which was probably the cruelest punishment of all for someone who'd built their identity around being special. Jason Miller tried to sue me for defamation, but his lawyer dropped the case when I provided evidence of his history with female employees. Last I heard, he was selling insurance in Phoenix, far from the fitness world that had once been his kingdom. The house on Sycamore Street felt different now, still empty, but not haunted. I'd kept Lily's room exactly as it was, her dinosaur posters on the walls, her books on the shelves, her stuffed animals arranged on the bed, but now it felt like a memorial instead of a shrine. I still listened to her voice message every night, but now it was a choice, not a compulsion, a way to remember love instead of loss. "I love you, Daddy. See you when you get home from work." 7 seconds of pure joy, preserved forever. On a Tuesday in October, exactly 1 year after Brooke had deleted the recording, I was called to a house fire on the east side of town. Single mother, 2 kids, electrical fire that had started in the basement and spread through the walls. We got them out safely. Mother and both children, plus their cat and the goldfish the little girl insisted we couldn't leave behind. As I carried the 6-year-old to the ambulance, she looked up at me with eyes full of trust and said, "Thank you for saving us, mister." For the first time in 3 years, I felt like a hero again. Standing in the front yard, watching the family embrace while the fire department finished mopping up, I thought about the difference between destruction and justice, about the difference between revenge and accountability, about the thin line between fighting fire and starting one. I'd crossed that line, and I wasn't sorry. Some people needed to burn before they learned not to play with matches. Some fires were necessary to clear the ground for new growth. The little girl waved at me from the back of the ambulance, and I waved back. Then I packed up my gear, climbed into the truck, and went home to my empty house that no longer felt like a tomb. That night, I listened to Lily's message one more time, then put my phone aside and slept better than I had in years. Some fires burn everything in their path. Others burn clean, leaving only what was meant to survive. I'd learned the difference.